A single bean helped build global empires, fueled revolutions, and changed the way humans think. Sounds like an exaggeration? Not at all. Did you know that coffee was once strictly banned by kings and religious leaders? Or that powerful governments feared ordinary coffeehouses far more than they feared taverns full of drunks? Entire fortunes, and even new nations, were built on the back of the coffee trade. This dark beverage sparked controversies, shaped economies, and pushed science forward. Stick around until the end of the video, and you'll understand exactly how your simple morning habit became one of the most influential commodities in human history. You will never look at your cup of coffee the same way again. Before coffee, a world without the world's favorite drink. But let's rewind the clock. Imagine a world before coffee became the planet's favorite drink. What did people actually consume? During the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, plain water was often unsafe to drink due to poor sanitation and deadly bacteria. To avoid getting sick, people had to find alternatives. While tea was already popular in the East, daily life in Europe looked very different. From the moment they woke up, people drank weak beer or watered-down wine. Yes, even for breakfast. Because of this, a massive portion of the population spent their entire day in a state of mild intoxication. Naturally, this didn't exactly promote sharp focus, clear thinking, or high productivity. Societies desperately needed something safe to drink that would keep people awake, alert, and productive. The stage was perfectly set for coffee to step out of the shadows and change absolutely everything. The legend of coffee's discovery. Oh, how did humanity discover this miracle bean? You might have heard the famous legend of Kaldi, an Ethiopian goat herd who noticed his flock frantically dancing and unable to sleep after eating red berries from a certain bush. Curious, Kaldi tried the berries himself and experienced an incredible rush of energy. While it's a charming story, historians consider it more myth than fact. Likely invented centuries later, coffee's true origins lie in the ancient coffee forests of Ethiopia, where indigenous tribes chewed the berries for a quick boost. But the real breakthrough happened when coffee crossed the Red Sea into Yemen. There, Sufi monks became the first to roast the beans and brew them in hot water. They used this bitter, stimulating drink to stay awake during long, grueling hours of nighttime worship and prayer. This is exactly how a humble local plant began its epic journey toward total global domination. Coffee becomes a strategic commodity. Coffee soon escaped the walls of the monasteries and exploded in popularity across the Arabian Peninsula. Realizing the massive treasure they had on their hands, local rulers established a strict monopoly over coffee production. It was an incredibly valuable resource. To maintain absolute control over the market, they strictly forbade the export of fertile, unroasted beans or live plants. Every single coffee bean had to be boiled or parched before it could leave the region, ensuring nobody else could grow it on foreign soil. The center of this fierce monopoly was the Yemeni Port of Mocha, which is exactly where the famous chocolate coffee drink gets its name. International demand grew at a staggering pace. Merchants from all over the world flocked to Mocha to get their hands on these precious beans, establishing the first global coffee trade routes. Almost overnight, coffee transformed into a highly profitable, heavily guarded commodity, generating immense wealth and power for those who controlled its flow to the rest of the world. Coffee houses, the first social networks. With the rise of the drink came a completely new cultural phenomenon, the birth of the first coffee houses. Often referred to as schools of the wise, these vibrant spaces essentially became the world's first social networks. Unlike noisy taverns that promoted drunkenness and brawls, coffee houses were sober environments that fostered intellectual discussion. Major business deals were struck, new scientific discoveries were debated, and, most dangerously, fierce political conversations took place. People from various social classes could sit together and exchange ideas freely. Because of this, rulers quickly began to see coffee houses as a massive threat. Sharp minds, clear thoughts, and open criticism of the government were a dictator's worst nightmare. Sultans, kings, and governors made multiple attempts to ban coffee and shut down these establishments. At one point in the Ottoman Empire, drinking coffee was even punishable by death. But the public's thirst for this awakening brew was unstoppable. Underground coffee houses flourished, riots broke out, and ultimately, those bans failed miserably. The coffee revolution could not be silenced. Europe falls in love with coffee. By the 17th century, thanks to ambitious Venetian merchants and expanding trade routes, coffee finally arrived in Europe. However, its initial reception was full of suspicion. Many religious figures called it the bitter invention of Satan and a dangerous Muslim drink, demanding its immediate ban. The fate of coffee ultimately fell to Pope Clement VIII. Before officially condemning it, he decided to taste a cup for himself. He found it so delicious that he famously declared, "This devil's drink is so good, we should cheat the devil by baptizing it." With his blessing, Europe completely fell in love. Coffeehouses rapidly spread across London, Paris, Venice, and Vienna, becoming the undisputed epicenters of the Age of Enlightenment. Coffee radically changed work habits, science, and business culture. Instead of starting the day with sluggish beer, Europeans were now drinking coffee. They became energized, hyper-focused, and ready to innovate. It was the intellectual spark that dragged the continent out of a foggy haze and into an era of rapid modernization and brilliant ideas. The bean that built empires' demand skyrocketed to such unprecedented heights that European powers refused to rely on the Arabian monopoly any longer. Thus began a thrilling era of espionage. Daring Dutch merchants managed to smuggle a few live coffee plants out of Yemen, successfully cultivating them in their colonies in Java. Soon, the French and Portuguese joined the race, using trickery and theft to transport coffee plants to their vast colonies in the Caribbean and South America. This sparked a massive shift in the global economy. Giant coffee plantations emerged worldwide, and Brazil rapidly rose to become a coffee-producing powerhouse. However, this explosive growth has a very dark and tragic side. The immense scale of coffee production required to quench Europe's thirst was built directly on the backs of enslaved labor. Millions of enslaved people were forced to endure brutal, grueling conditions on coffee plantations across the Americas. During this era, coffee became one of the most valuable agricultural exports in the world. The enormous wealth generated by this single crop literally built colonial empires, funded massive armadas, and violently reshaped the political map of the globe. Coffee's hidden influence on modern civilization. But coffee's influence wasn't limited to global trade. It secretly shaped the very structure of modern civilization. Historians directly link the spread of coffee to the rise of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution. Why? Because the new factories demanded continuous, tireless labor. Workers had to endure grueling 12-hour shifts, and caffeine was the ultimate fuel that increased productivity and made those longer working hours possible. Meanwhile, in the coffeehouses, the pillars of modern business were being constructed. Surprisingly, the famous insurance giant Lloyd's of London started as a simple coffeehouse run by Edward Lloyd, where merchants and sailors gathered. The London Stock Exchange also traces its roots to a noisy coffeehouse. Even the very first daily newspapers were written and distributed among coffee drinkers. It's no wonder historians confidently call coffee the fuel of modern civilization. Coffee today, a global obsession. Let's fast forward to the present day. Coffee is no longer just a beverage. It is a full-blown global obsession. It remains one of the most heavily traded commodities in the entire world. The modern coffee industry provides livelihoods for millions of people across the globe, from hard-working farmers on the steep slopes of the Andes to the skilled baristas at your favorite local cafe. Its economic and cultural importance today is absolutely staggering. Coffee brings us together, kickstarts our mornings, and fuels our creativity. Every single cup you pour represents centuries of daring exploration, ruthless trade, brilliant innovation, and relentless human ambition. The story of humanity is swimming right there in your mug. Conclusion plus call to action. Coffee isn't just a simple beverage. It is a powerful, historic force that fundamentally shaped the modern world as we know it. The next time you take that magical first sip in the morning, remember that you are drinking a story of exploration, empire, commerce, and culture. Which historical fact about coffee surprised you the most? Let me know down in the comments.